Curtis loves plywood.
I don't know why you like plywood.
What?
I know you like plywood.
Because it's consistent, it's strong, it comes in a variety of sizes, shapes, and colors. It can be made into all kinds of different shapes. It's really fantastic. There's I saw there was a group of crazy Dutch people, I think, I don't remember where they were from. They had this crazy idea that they were going to build houses out of plywood. And so it was a kind of a revolutionary building technique because they would have delivered to the job site a big CNC, everybody knows what CNC stands for, right? A CNC router, computer numerically controlled router. And so it was just a big table with a router on it, and they would put a sheet of plywood in it, and the router would you cut out shapes out of a piece of plywood. And so instead of having all this different material delivered to the job site, they would have this router delivered, and then they would just have stacks of plywood delivered. And they would just put sheets of plywood in there, cut out the shapes, and it was like a jigsaw puzzle, and then just put the house together. It was really cool. So there's people out there that do all kinds of crazy stuff with plywood. Does everybody understand how plywood is made? Do I even have a piece of plywood here? Here it is. This is the standard plywood that we buy in our shop. It's called BC plywood because it has a B face, a B grade face, meaning it's mostly smooth, doesn't have any knots, and doesn't have any voids in it, doesn't have any damage to it, it's a nice smooth side. And then C face. The C face has some it is not as pretty. This is 3/4 of an inch thick. It is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 layers of plywood. How they make plywood is they take a tree and they put it in a machine and they roll it against a knife and it cuts the layer off the outside of the tree as they roll it. So it's what they call a veneer. It's a very thin sheet of wood. And then they lay them so the grain on this piece of wood is going right to left. The next one in there is going this direction. So the grain is alternating. And that's where it gets its strength. That's why it's so strong. We buy BC plywood in the shop because it's a good balance of cost versus handleability, I guess you would say. When you get into the CDX, it's an exterior grade plywood. It's really rough. It's kind of hard. It's not very pretty. So if you want to paint it or something like that, it takes a lot of work to make it look nice. The AC stuff, it has an A face and a C face. That gets way too expensive. So that's why we use what we use. It comes in a variety of layers. This is 3/4 inch plywood. If you go to the store to buy it, it's actually 23/32 of an inch thick. That's what they manufacture. That's what they measure to. The next 32nd up is 3/4 of an inch. So the reason they're making it thinner is because they can, and it's a cost saving thing. Every 30 seconds of an inch of wood they can save makes it easier for them to produce. What else do I need to say about plywood? So many variations. If you're going to buy plywood, go to the store, look at what they have, pick the best for you. When the first show we did coming back from COVID, what show was it? Was it Head Over Heels? It was either I think it was Head Over Heels. I went to the store to buy plywood, and the market was doing crazy things. One of the things about plywood is whenever they have a hurricane somewhere, guess what happens to the price of plywood? It goes up. The price of plywood fluctuates radically at the store based on market conditions. I went to the store to buy plywood, and BC plywood was wildly expensive. Usually it's in the $45 to $55 range for a sheet of plywood. It was like $75 for a sheet of plywood. So I wound up buying this other stuff that they had, which was better in some ways, but not as good in other ways, but it was less expensive. So I wound up buying the more affordable option. So when you go to the store, check the price. What's that? Luan. Luan is just a different flavor of plywood. This is Luan here. There's a couple of variants on the theme. Luan is a very thin plywood. This is It's actually 5mm, but it's sold as marketed as 1/4 inch. It's an international product. It's sold all over the world. It has a thicker center. It's 3 layers. Has a thicker center core and then very thin veneers on the outside. The reason we love Luan is because it's thin. It's fairly lightweight. It has a nice, stable, beautifully paintable surface. What's the biggest drawback of the Luan plywood? What's the biggest problem with it? Yeah. We're not for the applications we're using it for. That's not usually the problem.
Is the wood different from the other one?
The wood is different from the other one. All of this wood is your standard spruce pine fir. Most of the surface layer is a southern yellow pine. The other layers can be spruce, pine, or fir. But this is the majority of this material is coming out of trees that are farm grown in the American South. Where'd the wood for the Luan come from?
I have bad news, gang.
What?
Isn't it the rainforest, Curtis?
This is rainforest right here. This is coming straight out of the rainforest in South America. They are mowing that crap down at the speed of sound and making this wood out of it. That's the number one bad thing about it. So, but it's cheap and it has a beautiful surface that's easily paintable, and that's why we use it. So, it also comes in variations. This is called wainscot. Same thing, similar product, same material. You'll notice some differences in the wood too. There's a lot of variation in this wood. On this one, they've scored it to put a pattern in it. So some of it comes with patterns on it. Is there a reason it's not made of different wood? It's not made of different wood because this species of wood makes this product really well. We're going to talk about species of woods and why they come from different places and just more about that in just a minute. I think. Hardboard masonite. What's Curtis's most hated material in the history of the world?
I don't know.
I hate this crap. Why do they use it?
It's that hardboard, ain't it?
Why do we use it?
I don't know. You don't like it?
It's relatively affordable.
Oh.
It's relatively available. There are things have changed a little bit. This is 1/4 inch. We used to be able to buy 1/4 inch. Guess what? In the last 2 years, 1/4 inch masonite doesn't exist anymore. I can't find it easy at a local vendor. I'm sure I could find it if I went out into the big market and looked everywhere. But the vendors that I go to, that I just normally go shopping, that are easy and convenient for me to get to, are only they've stopped carrying 1/4 inch and they're carrying 3/16 inch. Why? I don't know. The last time I went to the store, so what happened was back at the end of the school year last year, I had some money left over, and I knew we needed a bunch of masonite for everybody. It's the show that we're doing in Studio 88 right now. I went to the store, and they were almost out of masonite. I bought all the masonite that they had. It was 3/16 inch masonite. It was pressed on both sides, smooth on both sides. I bought all they had because I needed more than they had, and I just needed it all. But some of the sheets were damaged, but I bought it anyway because it was what they had. So fast forward, the summer goes by, come back to get started. I go to my stack of material, I'm like, oh, I'm still short, I need more. I went back to the store. They had a different product. It's smooth on one side, but it's textured on the other side, which is disappointing to us because we use it on both sides. We use it, we paint it on one side, we put it in a show, we use it, paint it on one side, it works great. We flip it over, we use it we take it out of the show, put it back on the shelf, pull it out again, use the other side. It's great, we can use both sides. Now we can only get one side of it because we got a texture on the other side. So I don't know what happened. I don't know if they changed the vendor or why, but it just changes. They just change it. There was a point I had about masonite. What is masonite? What's it made out of? Pulverized wood. They're actually they're grinding up. They're taking leftovers, all the parts of the tree that are hard to use. I can only make a 2x4. I can only make a 2x4 out of a tree. I can make particle board, masonite, this kind of product out of any part of the tree. I can use the little skinny branches. I can use all the other all the crap that I cut off. This used to be a round tree, and now it's not. All that part I can grind up. And what they're doing is they're basically, it's one step before paper. They're pulverizing the scrap down to the smallest pieces of wood fiber, blowing it into a machine, stirring it up with a bunch of glue, and then steaming it in a press to make this material. The reason I hate it is because whenever you stick a screw or a fastener through it, it disturbs all that stuff and it starts mushrooming out, starts swelling up. It's a problem. I don't like this stuff. I hate it. Why do we still use it? Because we started using it decades ago before I started working here, and it's just kind of been the thing that we keep using. We have a lot of it in inventory. We have scenery that's made out of it. We're used to using it. Decisions before my time were made. That's why we use this. Will we transition away from it? Maybe at some point. I don't know. We'll see. What's next? B. What does OSB stand for? Do I even have a piece of OSB? Where's my OSB? I know I have OSB. I don't have a piece of OSB in front of me. Look, there's a picture right there. What is OSB? Who can tell me what OSB stands for? Nobody. Oriented Strand Board. OSB. You've all seen this stuff before. I know you have. They're taking the leftover parts of the tree and they're putting it in a wood chipper and it's creating all these flakes. And then they're blowing it into a conveyor belt, basically. It's blowing glue and wood chips in. And the way they've designed their equipment that's putting this stuff together is that the wood chips are coming in at an angle, so they're overlaying each other to make this layered stuff. And then it's got a whole bunch of glue in it, and they glue it all together and put it in a big press. There's a picture I've seen of somebody dropped their pair of pliers in the press, and it's like pressing into the sheet of material. It's pretty scary about how much force that they put on that to squeeze it down to make it into that layer. What's the great thing about OSB? What's the best part about it? It's cheap. We can use parts of the tree that we can't make 2x4s out of. We can use any part of that tree. We can grind that thing up. As long as it's big enough to make a chip, it's big enough to make OSB. Very inexpensive, and almost as strong as plywood. Its strength is similar but different. You have to use it slightly different whenever you're building a house. But it's good and cheap. Why does Curtis hate it? Because it doesn't, you can't reuse it very well. Once I've built something out of it, taking it apart and saving it and trying to reuse it again, when I take fasteners out of it, it kind of starts falling apart and things like that. And so I hate this stuff. From a let's build some scenery standpoint. If I'm gonna nail it into the wall of the house and it's gonna be there for the next 50 years, however long that house exists, perfect, use it. It's terrible to make scenery out of it. I've tried because it's inexpensive. No, bad way. Particle board. How many people have ever put together their furniture out of a box? Your IKEA furniture. Guess what it's made out of? Particle board. Guess what this is made out of? This might not actually. This looks very much like, when I worked at Cincinnati Plastic Park, we had a salesman come by and he was trying to sell his product called wheat board. It was made out of wheat straw. It looked very similar to this. It was less expensive, and it was a much more sustainable product because how long does it take to grow a stalk of wheat? 2 months. Run to the Kansas wheat field. But it was very similar to particle board, but it was not. We were trying to buy it to replace MDF, and it did not do that job very well. So we didn't use it again. Again, what's that? We'll talk about that in a minute. particle board, again, it's another variation on the theme of masonite and OSB in that it is a wood chip material, meaning that we're grinding the leftover parts of the tree up into sawdust and then gluing it together. From a sustainability standpoint, again, better because it's using parts of the tree that we can't make lumber out of. Bad that it's got chemicals and solvents and crap like that. What's the other thing about what else does Curtis hate about particle board? It's very strong in compressive load. It's very bad as a beam. Okay? If I put weight on it, it's just going to break right in the middle. It's not going to bend very much. It's going to bend a little bit. If you put enough weight on it how many people have had that particle board shelf in their place and they've loaded it and it starts sagging and it just keeps sagging, and then you take the weight off of it, it doesn't come back, it's still sagged. Okay, maybe not. Dealt with a lot of particle board furniture in my life. It's susceptible to humidity. If you take a particle board shelf, you put a heavy weight on it, it will sag, right? And that sag will be permanent. As humidity levels go up and down, it will get in that state, and you can't fix it. You can't make it straight again.